So, if you have a painfully simple explanation for what you observe, if you have to reach to some really quite elaborate scenario involving hundreds of players, you're probably overthinking this. And a lot of what I've seen recently with the YouTube versus the mainstream media has sort of taken this wild left turn into conspiracy theory. And is there a painfully simple explanation for almost everything that you see that doesn't involve the mainstream media conspiring to get YouTube? And I mean, let's take a couple of examples. The Daily Mail. So they had this article, Google's blood money. Man shows sickeningly how terrorists how to pierce stab-proof vest. Online tutorial or something like that. Some massively sensationalized thing on the Daily Mail. And then you actually take a look at the video and it's nothing of the sort. It's basically a guy doing a review of a stab-proof vest. Because they were claiming on the Daily Mail that they were using this to teach terrorists how to use stab-proof, to pierce stab-proof vest used by constable in this Westminster stabbing. And it's like, actually, I think even terrorists have worked out that someone's wearing a stab-proof vest, you don't have to stab them in the vest. Anyway, so the guy was basically doing a review of this, but and this guy comes along with this absolutely massively sensationalized article, completely bogus, complete bullshit. And so why did he do this? Is this the mainstream media out to get YouTube? Or is this just a guy writing some clickbait article for a clickbait type publication? Because, newsflash, the mainstream media functions just like YouTube in an attention economy. And if they don't get people looking at their stuff, they're not making any money. So this to me looks like some guy basically just was writing some clickbait. And then you take a look at the other stuff he's done. I mean, you take a look at this guy and he really does look like some wet behind the ears guy, barely out of high school. And his other articles are how to print a 3D gun and take it on the Eurostar, or take knives on a plane, and all this sort of thing. And it's like, you can imagine the field day that the Daily Mail could have had if they treated their own Daily Mail piece like they did this YouTube, Daily Mail's blood money, Daily Mail reporter shows terrorists in tutorial video how to smuggle a plastic gun onto the Eurostar. And you could just go on and on. But is that all that you're looking at here? This wasn't some conspiracy to get Google. This was just some guy writing a clickbait article. And you can look at the other articles on the Daily Mail if this conclusion bothers you, and you'll find articles like Crabzilla, giant 50-foot crab dwarfs fishing boats off the coast of England somewhere, along with a wonderful photograph, because that definitely makes it legitimate. And you just take a look at the front page of Daily Mail, and it's clickbait article after clickbait article. I think they might have just been going for clickbait. And okay, so this is one article. Let's take another one, the Wall Street Journal. Now, they did this massive hit piece, of course, on PewDiePie, which is horrendously poorly researched, horrendously unfair, and again, their core was, Google capitalizing on, what was it, Nazi jokes, or, supporting Nazis or something. And, yeah, I've also been in that boat, in that, I don't know how many of you will remember this, but previously, I've not just been called a Nazi, people have written en masse to my employer calling me a Nazi. And then when I made it public, they were writing to my employer, trying to get me fired, calling me a Nazi. When I made a video about that, they then complained about the backlash, and the mainstream media, the news, the TV news, they covered them saying how I was a cyber terrorist targeting these poor innocent people who had just written to my employer calling me a Nazi and demanding that I be fired. And I mean, is this some conspiracy by the mainstream media? Or is this just some horrifically poor researching by people who just want to get the next article out and for it to keep the ratings of their station up? It's just competing in an attention economy. And the third one was, again, it was Wall Street Journal, and they were, what were they? That's right, they claimed that they'd found all of these Google ads next to some white supremacist video or something, and they'd found Coke and Nissan and McDonald's ads, which, I mean, first of all, I just don't understand how the Google ads works. Is Google builds up a profile made from the clicks that you made that day, and if Google ads show anywhere you go, that you'll get ads based on that profile of the clicks that you've made. So it's not that Google's actually sat there and it says, here's a white supremacist video, let's put Coke ads on it. It's that basically it's built up a profile that says that you're likely to like Coke and McDonald's, and then you happen to go to a video which has Google ads on it. Right? That's how it works. It's not that Google's made the decision to put all these people's ads on. So there's that, but I think it did actually rattle quite a lot of people at Google, because newsflash, I think Google's in it for the money. And if you're in it for the money, trying to make as much money out of adverts as possible, you do need to maintain a brand image. And this is a shocker to no one. You can't put Google ads on gore or porn, right? There is a balance here between what they'll actually put their ads on and what they won't, because this basically is Google's brand image. And YouTube would certainly become a Wild West attention economy. And just like all other attention economies, the problem is that tends to get dominated by things like clickbait. And this is actually a real problem for folks like me. I mean, if you are in a clickbait attention economy, you've got to make some compromises. If you want to play a Boy Scout in that sort of clickbait attention economy, you're just gonna get washed out. So I mean, people regularly complain at sort of clickbaity titles and clickbaity thumbnails, but the simple reality is, if the environment is sort of saturated with stuff like that, if you're doing some, if you're not actually trying to compete there, you're just going to lose. So I mean, it's not something I like, but it's just the reality of this sort of platform. And I think this had started to unsettle some folks at Google, in that in the attention economy, things that tend to win out are things like, it's basically Jerry Springer. Jerry Springer is what wins in the attention economy. And so you've got this whole generic loads of YouTube channels, things like Leafy is here, where all they basically do is they find some absolute nobody on the internet, sometimes kids, and basically make fun of them. And is that really the sort of forum that you actually want to create or financially support? You know, in other words, if we actually take a few steps back from the attention economy anarchism, will we actually get a platform that more people will like to use and will make us more money, that we can get more respectable ads on, that sort of thing? So yeah, I think it's that simple, that Google eventually does look to the bottom line on these things. All right, yeah, the YouTube, I think they've always run a loss, but this is an investment, right? It now has very close to a monopoly on the video market, and a lot of this is because they can spend lots of money on it. So yeah, I think this is very much where Google was going. Is they didn't want to have the reputation of putting their ads on the Jerry Springer of the internet, or the fake news. I mean, what do you want your brand image to be here? Do you want your adverts to be seen on the guy selling the nutritional supplements to help, you know, the Alex Jones type stuff, to stop their frogs turning gay, or vitality supplement, or, you know, with the little warnings at the bottom, you know, FDA tested, none of the claims none of the claims have been medically shown to be true. Do you really want that to be part of your brand image here? And so, yeah, I mean, is this soft censorship? Well, in part, yes. In part, they don't owe it. It is their choice where they put the ads. And the thing that's unfair here is that people have invested a lot of time and effort into some of these channels, and for Google just to have a policy change overnight, and all of a sudden essentially people have lost their entire income. Yeah, like the David Pakman, he's one of them who's the revenue basically for him dropped to zero. And if I had to guess, and this is just pure speculation, because he had a super vanilla show, very schoolboy, unoffensive. So why did he essentially get everything demonetized? And my guess would be that it looks like a news show, but it's really just some guy, you know, reading other articles on the news. So, I mean, personally, I quite like the guy. I quite like what he does. But if I had to guess, that's what threw up the flags with YouTube. Is it looks like news, but isn't. But then again, I mean, you take a look at things like the Young Turks. Do they do anything different? All they do is they look at what other people have done in the news, and they pass comments on it. So yeah, other than that, I can't think of anything why David Pakman should have been hit so hard over this. So yeah, I mean, a conspiracy by the mainstream media, I'm still really not seeing this. Or it's needlessly complicated. All these people in the mainstream media, they are adversaries. Why should all of a sudden they link arms in a unseen, for which there's no real evidence of collaboration other than a few stories attacking YouTubers? This is not really, you would need a conspiracy of like hundreds of people to make something like this happen, and that seems a bit of a stretch to me. Okay, so maybe just one last thought on this clickbait attention economy. Attention brings two things. It brings the ability to earn money, and it brings the ability to communicate ideas. Now, there are sites, there's always a balance between these two factors. There are sites for whom it's just about attention brings profits. That's all there is to it. I don't really care what they do to get your attention, as long as it brings the profit. And you can sort of see this in a lot of the, Daily Mail articles where they're Google, blood money, vile depictions, yada, 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 right? But for me, it's always been much more about communicating the ideas. The money, the money is a fantastic enabler, and I'm very grateful to all those who support this channel through Patreon. But for me, it's mostly about communicating ideas, because you need that. The future of mankind is unquestionably about dealing with real problems. And when you have the disinformation peddlers, so you get whatever, the creationists or the pseudoscience merchants selling their scam science, that just winds the hell out of me. And it also be a fantastic vehicle, because with a lot of people it either sounds like a good idea or they think that it's bullshit, but they're not quite sure why. And so I think that's one of the reasons why people really love these debunking videos, is because with a lot of this, you don't need to know that much, but you need to know these certain facts, and then the whole thing just collapses like a pack of cards. So it's a wonderful way of communicating ideas like that. And yeah, I mean, coming back to the mainstream media, and are they really in this conspiracy to get at YouTubers? Well, could you make the same argument that the mainstream media is all conspiring to push pseudoscience? Because again and again, this stuff gets pimped out by the mainstream media, and the one that is most egregious at the moment. Right, so Solar Roadways has its day in the sun. I've got a new video coming up on that, by the way, where it turns out their power generation statistics are up, and they're quite funny. But the Hyperloop is the new one. And every article has these gleaming computer-generated pictures of people zipping around at 1,000 miles an hour, going, and that there are just so many problems with this. It's sort of like Solar Roadways, that in principle there might be some way of doing it, but it's never going to be economically viable. And no one cares about all that. All they want is you can go from London to Edinburgh in 20 minutes, or from San Francisco to LA in 30 minutes, or they all have these ludicrously short travel times. And then you take a look at the state-of-the-art technology at the moment, and it's pathetic. It's the Solar Roadways thing. But again and again, you get this pimped in the mainstream media. Now, is this a conspiracy by the mainstream media to pimp pseudoscience? Or are these people just, it gets people's attention, and it's a relatively easy article to write, and therefore that's why you get this stuff? Because doing the research is hundreds of times harder than actually just parroting some popular bullshit, right? But I guess that's what I'm here for. So, yeah, many thanks for your attention and many thanks for your support.